Do you have a favorite publisher for classic books? Perhaps you like the Penguin classics, or maybe you prefer the Oxford classics. People tend to have their favorite publisher for classics. And for me, I'm going out on a little bit of a different limb. I like the New York Review Books classics. Hello, welcome to my channel, another Bibliophile Reads. I have a problem. I have too many unread books in my house. And today I want to go over 12 unread translated works of literature from the New York Review Books classics. And they said these are all unread. They are sitting on my shelf. So I'm just going to be giving a very brief description of these. Now, when I say these are classics, these are not quite the classics as in Penguin or Oxford. You won't see a lot of Thomas Hardy or Charles Dickens or Herman Melville, although occasionally you might dip into those types of classics. These are more of the unknown classics that go under the radar, with a few exceptions. So here are my 12 unread works of literature in translation that I need to read. Number 1, The Simple Past by Driss, Charaibi, 1926 to 2007. This novel was originally published in 1954 in French, translated by Hugh A. Carter in 1990. It is the story of a young man in Morocco who was also named Driss. He is from a wealthy Moroccan family. His father is simply known as the Lord. He is overbearing and domineering and subjugates women rather cruelly. So this is the story of coming of age, of a young man dealing with Islam and the treatment of women. Book number 2, The Strudlhof Steps by Heimtio von Doderer, 1896 to 1966. Originally published in German 1951 and translated into English by Vincent King in 2021. It is 850 pages long. This is the portrait of the city of Vienna. It has 2 date ranges in the storyline, 1908 to 1911 and 1923 to 1925. This has a wide range of characters. It covers respectable shopkeepers. It contains tireless sexual workers, bohemians. But the real character in this book is the city of Vienna in those two time periods. Oddly enough, when I was reading over this, his Doderer's more famous book, The Demons, is actually considered a sequel to the Strudlhof Steps. Book number 3, A Posthumous Confession by Marcessus, Emants, 1848 to 1923. Originally published 1894 in Dutch and translated by J.M. Coetzee in 1986. Yes, that J.M. Coetzee who won the Nobel Prize in Literature. This is the story of a troubled man, a self-loathing man who marries a woman and then discovers that his wife and his child that he makes with her is creating more tension in his life and creating even more self-loathing, and turns into a Dostoevskian murder story. Book number 4, The Liar by Martin A. Hansen, 1909 to 1955. Originally published 1942 in Danish and translated by Larkin in 2023. This is considered a classic in Scandinavian literature. Not something I am particularly familiar with, but it is the story of a school teacher on an island who, let's just say, carries a torch for a former student. And his former student has many suitors, or at least more than one suitor, that are not him. And this is his how he deals with those feelings. Book number 5, Havoc, by Tom Kristensen, 1893 to 1974, originally published 1930 in Danish, translated by Carl Malmberg in 1968. Ollie is a young man who has a promising career in letters before him, but he is bored with his beautiful wife, and he flirts with communism and Catholicism. But Ollie is not a true believer in any of those causes, so he has to find a true and meaningful love. And that comes from the bottle. And disaster, of course, is going to ensue from that choice. Book number 6, The Radiance of the King, by Camara, Laye, 1928 to 1980, originally published 1954 in French, translated by James Kirk in 1971. This is a classic of African literature. Camara Laye was Nigerian, and this is the story of a white man shipwrecked off the coast of Africa. The man thinks very highly of himself and wants an audience with the king of the African nation. But that king is away on a summer trip and cannot meet the king. So the white man is off to find the king. And along the way, he slowly loses his sense of purpose and identity, and eventually sold off into slavery himself. Book number 7, Soul, by Andrey, 1899 to 1951. This is a collection of short stories gathered together in 2008 and translated from the Russian by Robert and Elizabeth Chandler. There are a number of different types of short story in here, gathering from World War II or to the dealing with a troubled marriage. And the style that Plat wrote in during that Soviet era is described back here as alternative realism. Book number 8 by Simenon, 1903 to 1989, originally published in 1942 in French and translated by John Porty. This is the story of two people, a young widow living with her father-in-law and putting up with his sexual advances. The second is a criminal just out of prison. The widow hires the criminal to be a handyman to help her on the farm that her father-in-law owns. Can you imagine what they're going to get up to? Book number 9, The Flanders Road, by Claude Simon, 1913 to 2005. This book was originally published in 1960s in French and translated by Richard Howard in 1961. In May of 1940, Claude Simon belonged in the French army. He was part of the cavalry charge against a division of German panzer tanks, and he witnessed his commanding officer blown off his horse. It made quite an impression on the young Simon's life. And this is the story of Georges, who suffers a very similar fate to his commanding officer. It is considered one of Simon's best novels. Book number 10, Telluria by Vladimir Sorokin, 1955 to current. Originally published 2013, translated from the Russian by Max Lawton. This is a science fiction novel. There has been a devastating war between Europe and Islam, and the world has been set back roughly to the Middle Ages. And this book is told in 50 chapters with different characters. Now, in this world, there is a new drug that if you inject it directly into the brain, it will provide ecstasy. If it is injected wrong, it leads to death. Book number 11, The Faun by Magda Sazbro, 1917 to 2007. Originally published 1959 in Hungarian and translated by Leon Rix in 2023. This is the story of Esther, of her growing up in pre-World War II and then post-war communist Hungary, where she becomes a star of the stage. But her life is filled with lots of regrets, and she has a lot to vent about her life and her loves and everything that may not have gone right in her life. Book number 12, Temptation by János Székely, 1901 to 1958. Originally published in 1946 in Hungarian and translated by Mark Boxzoni, 2021. This is the story of an illegitimate boy named Bella, who eventually gets assigned to work at a very fancy hotel in Budapest. He witnesses the disparaging differences between the working class and the upper class, and all that the wealthy have and all that the working class does not have. He sees a beautiful woman that he cannot have, and he becomes tempted by fascism, because maybe they can provide something for the working class to which he belongs. Okay, those are my 12 translated works of literature that I need to read at some point. If any of these titles strike your fancy, that you think I should pick it up sooner rather than later, go ahead and leave a comment to this video. Now, if you do not know, the New York Review Books Classics often has 40% off sales twice a year, usually the end of June and the end of December. I cannot guarantee that NYRB Classics will be having a 40% off sale at the end of this June, but you know, I have high hopes that they will, because I have a list of even more books to add to this TBR if that sale happens. I will leave a link to their website in the description of this video so you can join their mailing list, and maybe you too can be tempted by a 40% off of these fabulous classics. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.